My brother Derek laughed into the phone receiver and said, "Sarah, do not come to the New Year's Eve gala. My fiancée is a congresswoman. You work at a museum gift shop. You will just embarrass us with your cheap dress and your lack of social grace. Stay home and watch the ball drop on TV, like the invisible person you are." 2 weeks later, his fiancée, Victoria Sterling, came for an official VIP tour of the Smithsonian where I work. The head of security briefed her saying, "You will be meeting Dr. Sarah Mitchell, our executive director." Victoria went pale and whispered, "Mitchell," as in Derek's sister. The engagement ended exactly 50 hours later. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I am 34 years old and I hold a PhD in history from Yale. But to my family, I am just the failure who works downtown. Before I tell you how I evicted my brother from his penthouse and ended a political career in one afternoon, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever been the family scapegoat who was secretly holding all the power. The timeline of their destruction began on New Year's Eve. I was sitting in my corner office on the top floor of the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. The glass walls offered a panoramic view of the National Mall. The Capitol building was glowing white against the winter darkness. On my mahogany desk sat a heavy cream-colored envelope with the presidential seal embossed in gold. It was an invitation to the White House private New Year's reception. I had not opened it. Instead, I was holding my phone listening to the thumping bass of a party on the other end. My younger brother Derek was shouting over the noise. "Are you listening to me, Sarah?" Derek's voice was slurred. He had clearly started celebrating early. "I told Mom to tell you, but she said I had to do it myself. Do not come tonight." I swiveled my leather chair around, looking out at the Washington Monument. I kept my voice perfectly even. "I thought the invitation was for the whole family, Derek. You sent it to the group chat." "Yeah, well, that was before Victoria looked at the guest list." Derek let out a cruel chuckle. "Look, Sarah, this is high stakes. We have senators coming. We have donors. Victoria is trying to secure a seat on the House Cultural Committee. We cannot have you standing around awkwardly." I tightened my grip on the phone. "Why would I be awkward, Derek?" "Because you do not fit in." He sighed as if explaining quantum physics to a toddler. "You sell postcards and keychains for a living, Sarah. People are going to ask what you do, and you are going to say, 'I work at the museum,' and they are going to assume you are a curator or something. Then, when they find out the truth, it makes Victoria look bad. It makes me look bad. We are a power couple. We cannot have a gift shop girl hanging off our arm." I closed my eyes. It was the same old story. 5 years ago, when I started as a junior researcher, Derek decided I was a janitor. 3 years ago, when I became department head, he decided I was a tour guide. Last month, when the board appointed me executive director overseeing a $300 million endowment, Derek did not even read the press release. He just assumed I was still working the register because that fit the narrative he needed. He needed to be the successful one. I glanced at the reflection of my face in the dark glass. I was wearing a $2,000 silk blouse, and my braids were styled in an intricate crown. "So I am uninvited?" I asked flatly. "Do not be dramatic." Derek scoffed. "Just stay home. Order a pizza. It is better for everyone. Victoria barely tolerates you anyway. She thinks you are painfully plain. Oh, and hey, since you are saving money on a dress, transfer me $200. I need to tip the valet." I looked at the presidential invitation on my desk. I picked it up and dropped it into the recycling bin. I did not want to go to the White House. I wanted to see how far this delusion would go. "Fine, Derek. Have a great night." I hung up. The silence in my office was heavy. Just then, my assistant Chloe knocked on the glass door. She looked apologetic. "Dr. Mitchell, I am so sorry to disturb you on New Year's Eve, but the donor committee needs your signature on the $10 million grant for the literacy program. They want to announce it at midnight." I pulled my Mont Blanc pen from its holder. I signed the document with a flourish. "Sarah Mitchell, Executive Director." Chloe looked at me. Is everything okay, Dr. Mitchell? You look like you just heard a joke. I did, Chloe. I smiled and it did not reach my eyes. My brother just told me I am not classy enough to party with politicians. Chloe looked at my signature on the $10 million check and then back at me. She laughed nervously. He is joking, right? He knows you literally run this city's cultural scene, right? He has no idea, Chloe. And we are not going to tell him. Not yet. I turned back to the window. My phone buzzed again. This time the picture on the screen was my mother, Louise Mitchell. I took a deep breath. If Derek was the bullet, my mother was the gun. Hello, Mother. Sarah, why are you upsetting your brother? Her voice was shrill. Derek just texted me saying you were guilt-tripping him about the party. Why must you always be so difficult? I rubbed my temples. I am not being difficult. He uninvited me because he thinks I am an embarrassment. Well, can you blame him? Mom huffed. Victoria is a congresswoman, Sarah. She is important. She is beautiful. She is going places. Derek is going places. He is an entrepreneur. He needs to maintain an image. You know how hard he works. I almost laughed out loud. Derek had not worked a real day in his life. He called himself a venture capitalist, but his only capital came from me. Mom, he is 30 years old, and he has never held a job for more than 6 months. That is not true. He is building his network. Mom snapped, defensiveness dripping from every word. You are just jealous. You have always been jealous of him because he shines, and you are just steady. You are plotting, Sarah. You work your little 9 to 5 at that dusty museum, and you come home to your cat. Derek is out there making moves. I looked around my office, which was larger than my mother's entire living room. Making moves. I repeated. Mom, do you know who pays the rent on his penthouse? Here we go again. She groaned. You helped him with the deposit. We know. You hold that over his head constantly. That is why he does not want you there tonight. You have this negative energy. You should be proud to support him. That apartment is his sanctuary. It fits his status. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. It was not just a deposit. The lease for the luxury penthouse in Navy Yard was in my name. The monthly $4,000 rent was auto-pay from my personal account. Derek told Mom he bought it with crypto profits. And the Porsche he drives, I asked quietly. He is leasing that with his consulting fees, Mom said proudly. False. I was paying the lease. He told me he needed a car to impress investors and promised to pay me back. That was 2 years ago. I had not seen a dime. Fine, I said, my voice turning icy. So I am the plotting sister with negative energy. Is that it? I am just saying know your place, Sarah. Mom softened her tone, which was actually worse. Look, I know it is hard for you being the single one, the less successful one. But do not ruin this for him. Actually, since you are not going out, can you do me a favor? I waited. I knew it was coming. Derek ordered some custom orchids for Victoria for tonight. It is a surprise. The florist just called and there was an issue with his card. Probably a bank error because he is moving so much money around for his investments. Can you transfer him $500? Just to cover it. He will pay you back on Monday. I looked at the grant approval on my desk. $10 million for underprivileged children signed without blinking. And here was my mother begging for $500 for flowers she thought her golden child could afford. He won't pay me back, Mom. We both know that. Sarah. Do not be stingy. It is New Year's Eve. Do it for the family. Do it so your brother can look good for his future wife. I swiveled my chair again, staring at the Capitol building. The dome was shining bright white. Victoria Sterling worked in that building. She was an up-and-coming star in the Democratic Party. She campaigned on platforms of truth, integrity, and family values. I wondered what Victoria Sterling would do if she knew her fiancé was paying for her flowers with his sister's money. I wondered what she would do if she knew her fiancé was homeless, jobless, and driving a car he did not own. I tapped my fingers on the desk. Okay, Mom. I will send the money. Good girl. Mom sounded relieved. I knew you would do the right thing. Stay home tonight, Sarah. Get some rest. You sound tired. She hung up without saying Happy New Year. I opened my banking app. I transferred $500 to Derek. I typed the memo line carefully. For Victoria. Then I opened my calendar. I saw the entry for January 14th. VIP Tour. Congresswoman Victoria Sterling. I pressed the intercom button. Chloe, come back in here, please. Chloe appeared instantly. Yes, Dr. Mitchell, I need you to contact security. For the Sterling tour on the 14th, I want a full Level 1 protocol. Chloe's eyes widened. Level 1, that is usually for heads of state. That means full background checks, financial vetting, and a formal dossier. Exactly. I smiled, and this time it was a smile that could cut glass. And Chloe, make sure the dossier is printed and placed on the conference table. I want to make sure we give my future sister-in-law the welcome she deserves. I turned back to the window as fireworks began to explode over the Potomac River. Happy New Year, Derek. Enjoy the penthouse while you can. While I was calmly directing the flow of millions of dollars in cultural grants from my corner office, a very different scene was unfolding across town at the Sterling for Congress campaign headquarters. The atmosphere in that glass-walled war room was toxic. It smelled of stale coffee, expensive perfume, and desperation. Victoria Sterling was pacing back and forth in her crimson power suit, her heels clicking rhythmically against the hardwood floor like a ticking time bomb. On the wall behind her, giant monitors displayed the latest polling data in bright, unforgiving red and blue bars. The numbers were not good. In fact, they were catastrophic. Her campaign manager, a ruthless political operative named Marcus, slammed a thick binder down on the conference table. The sound made everyone in the room jump except for Victoria, who just narrowed her eyes. "We are bleeding out," Victoria Marcus said, his voice tight with frustration. "The latest numbers from the 14th district just came in, and they are brutal. You are losing the African American demographic by 20 points. 20 points, Victoria. Do you know what that means? It means you are finished before the primaries even start." Victoria stopped pacing. She turned slowly to face him, her face a mask of controlled fury. "That is impossible," she hissed. "I have done everything right. I have attended the church services. I have kissed the babies. I have promised funding for the community centers. Why are they not connecting with me?" "Because you look like a tourist," Marcus replied bluntly. "You look like a wealthy outsider who parachuted in to take a seat in Congress. You lack authenticity. We need a cultural anchor. We need something that screams credibility. We need an endorsement that money cannot buy." Victoria sank into her leather chair, rubbing her temples. "So, fix it, Marcus. That is what I pay you for. Find me a photo opportunity. Find me a gala. Find me something." "I have an idea," Marcus said, tapping a picture on the slide deck. "The National Museum of African American History and Culture. The Smithsonian." The room went silent. The NMAAHC was not just a museum. In Washington, D.C., it was holy ground. It was the crown jewel of the mall. An endorsement from their leadership was worth more than $1 million in ad spend. Marcus continued. "They are hosting a private dedication ceremony next week for the new Civil Rights Wing. It is strictly closed to the press and the public. But if you could get a private tour, if you could be seen walking the halls with their executive director, that is the image we need. That says you are serious. That says you belong." Victoria sat up straighter, her eyes lit up with calculation. "The executive director? That is Dr. Sarah Mitchell Wright, the historian. She is notoriously private. She turns down vice presidents. How do we get to her?" Marcus looked over at the corner of the room where my brother Derek was sitting. Derek was scrolling through his phone, trying to look busy and important in his Italian suit. A suit that I was currently paying the credit card bill for. Victoria followed Marcus's gaze. A slow, predatory smile spread across her face. "Derek, darling," she purred. Derek looked up, startled. "Yes, babe. I mean yes, Victoria. You told me you were a Diamond Circle donor at the museum, didn't you? You said you had deep connections there. You said you were practically family with the board members. Derek froze. I could imagine the cold sweat breaking out on the back of his neck. He had indeed told her that. It was one of the many lies he used to build his facade of wealth and influence. He had told her he was a major benefactor. He had told her the staff knew him by name. Technically, the staff did know him by name, but only because security had flagged him for trying to sneak into VIP events twice before. Well, Derek stammered, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. I mean, yes, I know people. I have donated. I go there often. Excellent, Victoria said, standing up and walking over to him. She placed a hand on his shoulder. Her grip was tight, possessive, and threatening. Then this is your moment to shine, Derek. I need a private meeting with Dr. Mitchell. Not a public tour, a private sit-down. I need it arranged for tomorrow. Derek swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed nervously. Tomorrow. That is really short notice, Victoria. Dr. Mitchell is very busy. She travels a lot. Maybe we could send an email through official channels. Victoria's hand moved from his shoulder to his tie. She tightened it just slightly, a subtle act of dominance that went unnoticed by the rest of the room, but screamed danger to Derek. We do not have time for emails, Derek. The polls are dropping now. You said you were a player in this town. You said you could open doors for me. Well, this is the only door that matters. If you cannot get me into that museum, I have to wonder what else you have been lying about. And I have to wonder if you are really the right partner for a congresswoman. The threat hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. Derek knew exactly what she meant. Without Victoria, he was nothing. He had no job, no assets, no future. His entire identity was wrapped up in being Mr. Victoria Sterling. He looked around the room. Everyone was watching him. Marcus looked skeptical. The interns looked bored. Victoria looked lethal. He had no choice. He had to double down on the lie. Of course I can do it, he said, his voice cracking slightly before he cleared his throat. I will make a call. I have a contact on the inside. A lower-level employee who owes me a favor. She can get us in the back door. Once we are inside, I will charm the director myself. Victoria released his tie and patted his cheek. Good boy. Make it happen. Do not disappoint me, Derek. I do not forgive disappointment. She turned back to her team, barking orders about press releases and social media strategy. Derek sat there for a moment, paralyzed by the corner he had painted himself into. He pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking. He knew only one person who worked at the museum. Me. But in his mind, I was still just the loser sister, the gift shop girl, the ticket scanner. He had no idea that the Dr. Mitchell Victoria was so desperate to meet was the same Sarah he had uninvited from his party 2 weeks ago. He thought he could use me. He thought he could bully me into sneaking them in through a service entrance so he could pretend to be a big shot. He thought I was his safety net. He opened his contacts and scrolled to my name. He hesitated for a second, remembering how rude he had been on New Year's Eve. But his desperation was stronger than his shame. He typed out a text but deleted it. No, he needed to call. He needed to assert dominance. He needed to make sure I knew who was in charge. He stood up and walked out into the hallway, dialing my number. On the other side of the city, my phone buzzed on the mahogany desk. I saw his name on the caller ID. I let it ring twice before picking up. I knew exactly what he wanted, and I knew exactly how I was going to give it to him. The trap was set, and he was walking right into it. The vibration of my phone on the marble countertop sounded like a drill in the quiet of my apartment. I looked at the screen. It was Derek again. It had been exactly 20 minutes since he hung up on me after uninviting me to his party. Now he was calling back. I swirled the Pinot Noir in my glass and watched the red liquid coat the sides. I knew exactly why he was calling. The panic in his voice earlier had been palpable. He had painted himself into a corner with his lies, and now he needed the sister he despised to be his escape hatch. I let it ring 3 times, 4 times. I wanted him to sweat. I wanted him to imagine the humiliation of telling Victoria he was a fraud. Finally, I picked up. "Hello, Derek." I kept my voice flat. "Bored." "Sarah." "Hey." He sounded breathless, like he had just run up a flight of stairs. "Listen, I have been thinking." "You have been thinking," I repeated. "That is dangerous for you." "Ha ha, very funny." He forced a laugh. "Look, I know things got a little heated earlier about New Year's Eve, but I have an opportunity for you. A big one. Victoria and I were just talking, and she expressed a deep interest in the museum. She wants to see where you work." I raised an eyebrow, even though he could not see me. "She wants to see the gift shop, Derek." "Well, not the gift shop specifically," he stammered. "She wants to see the exhibits, the galleries, you know, the culture stuff. She is very big on culture right now." And I told her, "Look, Sarah, let us be real. You work there. You have keys. You know the layout." I took a sip of wine. "So let me get this straight. You uninvited me from a party because I am an embarrassment. But now you want me to give a congresswoman a tour. It is not a tour, Sarah." His voice dropped to a whisper, as if he was afraid Victoria might hear him. "It is a favor. We do not need the official tour. We do not want to deal with lines or tickets or the public. We want the VIP treatment." I told her I could make a call and get us in through the back. "The back?" I asked. "Yeah, the service entrance, the loading dock, wherever you employees go in to punch your time cards." I felt a cold smile spread across my face. He really believed it. He truly believed I punched a time card. He believed I walked past the dumpsters every morning to scan a badge and stock shelves. "Derek," I said slowly, "security at the Smithsonian is extremely tight. I cannot just open a back door." "Come on, Sarah, do not be difficult." He snapped, his arrogance returning. "Just talk to the janitors or whoever you hang out with. Slip the security guard a 20. Look, I will make it worth your while. If you can get us in tomorrow morning quietly without any fuss, I will give you $200. Cash. $200. He was offering me $200 to sneak into my own building. I managed a budget of $40 million a year. I had just approved a security system upgrade worth $500,000, and my brother was offering me pocket change to commit a security breach. I stayed silent, letting the insult hang in the air. "Sarah, are you there?" he hissed. "Do not blow this for me." "Victoria really wants to meet the director, but obviously that is impossible. So I told her you could show us around instead. Just keep your head down, wear your uniform, don't try to talk politics with her. Just open the doors and point at the artifacts." "Wait." I sat up straighter. "You told her she could meet the director." "Well, yeah." Derek sounded defensive. "I may have exaggerated my connections a little bit. I told her I knew the director. But I figured if we just show up and look important, maybe we can fake it. Or maybe you can just tell her the director is busy. Just cover for me, Sarah. Please." I closed my eyes and visualized the next 24 hours. I saw the trap snapping shut. I saw the look on Victoria's face. I saw the absolute destruction of Derek's house of cards. It was perfect. "Okay, Derek," I said. "Really?" He sounded shocked. "Yes. Bring her tomorrow at 10 a.m. But Derek, do not come to the loading dock. That is for trash. Come to the main VIP entrance on Constitution Avenue." "Are you sure?" he asked suspiciously. "Won't they stop us?" "Not if I put your name on the list." I lied. "I will tell the guards I have family visiting. Just make sure you look presentable." "You are a lifesaver, Sarah." He let out a breath of relief. "Seriously, I will give you the cash when we get there. And hey, try to look professional, okay? Iron your polo shirt or whatever they make you wear." "I will look my best, Derek." I promised. I hung up the phone and set it on the counter. Then I picked it up again and dialed a number that was saved in my favorites. It rang once. "Dr. Mitchell." The deep baritone voice of Raymond, the head of security, answered. "It is late. Is everything all right?" "Everything is fine, Raymond," I said, walking over to the window to look at the city lights one last time. I need to make a change to tomorrow's schedule. Go ahead, Director. We have a VIP guest arriving at 10 a.m. Congresswoman Victoria Sterling. I will alert the detail, Raymond said professionally. Shall we prepare the standard diplomatic protocol? Number 1. I said, my voice turning hard. I want Level 1 protocol. There was a pause on the line. Level 1 was reserved for high-risk visitors or potential threats. It meant invasive screening. It meant background dossiers. It meant no exemptions. Level 1, Raymond repeated. Director, are you sure? That involves full metal detection and credential verification. It can be quite intrusive for a sitting congresswoman. I am sure. And Raymond, one more thing. She will be accompanied by a civilian, a Mr. Derek Mitchell. Your brother? Yes. I paused. He believes he is a high-level donor. He believes he is above the rules. I want you to treat him exactly according to the book. If his name is not on the Secret Service clearance list, he goes through the mags. He takes off his shoes. He takes off his belt. No exceptions, no courtesies. Do you understand? I could hear the smile in Raymond's voice. He had met Derek once before when Derek tried to park his leased Porsche in the staff lot and screamed at the attendants. Raymond did not like Derek. I understand completely, Director. We will ensure the integrity of the museum is maintained. And Raymond, yes, ma'am. Prepare the financial dossier on the Mitchell Family Trust. The one with the real estate deeds and the car leases. Have it printed and bound. Put it on the conference table in the executive boardroom. I think we are going to need it for the presentation. Consider it done, Dr. Mitchell. I ended the call. I walked to my closet and pushed aside the casual clothes. I reached for the back where I kept my power suits. I pulled out a tailored cream-colored suit that cost more than Derek's entire wardrobe. I pulled out the vintage diamond brooch my grandmother had left me. Derek wanted me to wear my uniform. He wanted me to look professional. I would give him exactly what he asked for. Tomorrow he would not see his sister, the gift shop girl. He would see Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the woman who held his life in the palm of her hand, and he was going to watch her close her fist. The morning sun hit the bronze lattice of the museum exterior, casting long, intricate shadows across Constitution Avenue. Inside my office, the air was electric with anticipation. It was not the usual hum of daily operations. It was the specific charged atmosphere of a trap about to be sprung. I stood in front of the full-length mirror in my private bathroom. I was not dressing for a day at the office. I was dressing for a coronation, or perhaps an execution. I chose my outfit with the precision of a general selecting armor. It was a bespoke ivory suit tailored to perfection in Milan. The fabric was crisp and authoritative, standing in stark contrast to the deep melanin of my skin. It was a suit that screamed power. It was a suit that said I did not answer to anyone. But the centerpiece was not the suit. I opened a small velvet box on the vanity. Inside lay a vintage gold sunburst brooch encrusted with small but flawless diamonds. It had belonged to my great-grandmother, who had been a domestic worker her entire life to buy this one piece of dignity. My mother had tried to take it from me last Christmas. She had demanded I give it to Victoria as an engagement gift. She said, Victoria deserves it, Sarah. She is going to be in the public eye. You just sit in an office. Jewelry like that is wasted on you. I had refused. It was the first time I had ever said no to them. And today I pinned that brooch to my lapel right over my heart. It was a symbol. I was not just fighting for myself. I was fighting for every Black woman who had been told to shrink so someone else could shine. I walked out into the main suite where my team was waiting. Chloe, my executive assistant, and Raymond, the head of security, stood at attention. They knew something was different today. They could feel the shift in the atmosphere. Good morning, team. My voice was calm, but it carried a weight that made them straighten up. Good morning, Dr. Mitchell, they replied in unison. Review the protocol for 10 a.m. I commanded, walking to my desk and running a hand over the leather surface. Chloe stepped forward, consulting her tablet. We have Congresswoman Sterling and Mr. Derek Mitchell arriving at the VIP entrance. I will greet them personally. I will address the Congresswoman by her full title. I will offer her refreshments and escort her to the history galleries. And, Mr. Mitchell? I asked. Chloe looked up, her eyes dancing with a hint of mischief. I will treat Mr. Mitchell as accompanied baggage. I will not address him unless necessary. I will not offer him the VIP pass. He will be issued a temporary visitor badge, the paper kind with the sticky back. Perfect. I nodded. And make sure you correct him if he tries to assert authority. Do it politely, brutally polite. I turned to Raymond. And security. Raymond crossed his huge arms. His face was stone. We have the metal detectors calibrated to the highest sensitivity setting. If he has so much as a foil gum wrapper in his pocket, it will go off. We will require him to remove his belt, his shoes, and his watch. We will make him empty his pockets into the gray plastic bin. And if he protests, I asked. If he protests, we will remind him that federal regulations require strict screening for anyone not on the official clearance list. Raymond smiled a slow, predatory smile. And since you did not put him on the list, Dr. Mitchell, he is just another civilian off the street. Excellent. I walked to the window looking down at the street below. I could see the black SUVs starting to pull up. The press was already gathering, sensing a story. There is one more thing, I said, turning back to them. When you bring them to the boardroom for the final meeting, I want the door closed. I want the blinds drawn. And I want the financial dossier on the table. The thick one. Done, Raymond said. They left the room to take their positions. I was alone again. I took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of expensive leather and old paper. This was my sanctuary. This was the kingdom I had built with my own 2 hands while my family was busy calling me worthless. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Derek. I picked it up. We are 5 minutes away. Victoria is nervous. Do not mess this up, Sarah. And for God's sake, do not wear that ugly blue polo shirt with the logo. Wear something decent. Try to look like you can afford to be in the same room as us. I looked at my reflection in the dark glass of the window. The ivory suit glowed in the light. The diamonds on my grandmother's brooch sparkled like cold fire. I typed back 2 words. See you. I dropped the phone into my pocket. I did not need to be nervous. I did not need to be afraid. I was the executive director of the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture, and school was about to be in session. From my vantage point on the 5th floor, the scene unfolding on Constitution Avenue looked like a silent movie. I stood with my forehead resting against the cool glass of the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the stage I had set. The morning sun was bright and unforgiving, reflecting off the polished black paint of the 2 SUVs that pulled up to the curb. It was 10:00 exactly. Victoria Sterling was punctual. I had to give her that. A swarm of press photographers had already gathered. My marketing team had leaked the information that the Congresswoman would be making a significant cultural visit today. Derek probably thought the press was there for him. He probably thought this was his red carpet moment. I watched as the door of the first SUV opened. Derek stepped out first. Even from 5 stories up, I could see the arrogance in his posture. He buttoned his suit jacket, the Italian wool that I had paid for, and smoothed his tie. He paused for a moment, looking left and right, soaking in the attention of the cameras. He waved at a photographer who was actually adjusting his lens and not looking at him at all. Then he reached back into the car and offered his hand to Victoria. She emerged, looking every inch the politician, in a sharp navy blazer and pearls. She flashed her practiced campaign smile to the crowd. Derek placed his hand on the small of her back, guiding her forward with a possessive air. He was playing the role of the power broker perfectly. He leaned in to whisper something in her ear, probably pointing out the architecture or claiming he knew the architect personally. They began to walk toward the museum. There were 2 entrances. To the right was the main public entrance, where a line of tourists had already formed, winding around the block. To the left was the VIP and diplomatic entrance, marked by a red velvet rope and a gold sign. It was guarded by two uniformed officers, and Raymond, my head of security, who stood like a granite statue holding a digital clipboard. Derek steered Victoria confidently toward the velvet rope. He walked with a strut that made my stomach turn. It was the walk of a man who had never been told no. He barely looked at the tourists standing in line, acting as if they were invisible. He was focused entirely on the VIP door, the gateway to the elite status he craved so desperately. I took a sip of my espresso and watched the collision happen. As Derek reached for the velvet rope to unhook it himself, Raymond stepped forward. He did not shout. He did not make a scene. He simply positioned his massive frame between Derek and the door. I could not hear the words through the thick glass, but I knew the script. We had rehearsed it. Down on the sidewalk, Derek stopped. He looked annoyed. He gestured toward Victoria, speaking rapidly. I could see him pointing at his chest. "I am with her." Raymond shook his head slowly. He looked down at his clipboard. He tapped the screen with a stylus and then looked back at Derek. "No." Victoria stopped smiling. She looked from Derek to Raymond. She said something to the security chief, probably asserting her title. Raymond nodded respectfully to her. He unhooked the rope. He gestured for her to enter, but when Derek tried to follow, Raymond put a hand up. A flat palm, the universal sign for stop. Derek's composure cracked. He flailed his arms. He pointed at the building. He pointed at the car. The photographers, sensing drama, turned their lenses away from the building and zoomed in on the argument. Flashbulbs began to pop like strobe lights. I pressed the intercom button on my desk. "Audio," I commanded. A moment later, the feed from the security cameras at the entrance filled my office speakers. The silent movie suddenly had sound. "This is absolutely ridiculous." Derek's voice was shrill, rising in panic. "Do you know who I am? I am a Diamond Circle donor. I am personal friends with Dr. Mitchell. I am the fiancé of Congresswoman Sterling. I apologize, sir." Raymond's voice was calm, deep, and unbothered. "Congresswoman Sterling has full diplomatic clearance. Her name is on the pre-approved list. She may proceed to the executive elevator." "Then let me through." Derek stepped forward, trying to push past. "Sir, step back." Raymond did not move an inch. "Your name is not on the clearance list. There must be a mistake. Check it again. Check under Mitchell." "Derek. Or maybe under Sterling." "I have checked the entire database, sir," Raymond said, looking him dead in the eye. "You are listed as an accompanying civilian. Federal regulations for this facility are very strict. Only pre-cleared individuals may use the diplomatic entrance. All other guests must proceed to the general screening area." General screening. Derek gasped as if Raymond had asked him to swim through sewage. "You want me to stand in line?" "You do not have to stand in the general line, sir. We can expedite you to the front of the screening queue, but you must go through the metal detectors and the X-ray machine." Victoria intervened, her voice tight. "Officer, this is my fiancé. Surely he can just come in with me. We are running on a tight schedule." "I am sorry, Congresswoman," Raymond said politely but firmly. "The director has issued strict Level 1 security protocols for today. No exceptions. It is for your own safety, ma'am." "Level 1. Derek sputtered. "I am not a threat. I am family." "If you are family, sir, then you should have been on the list," Raymond said, delivering the line with lethal precision. "Please proceed to the screening area to your left, or you can wait outside." Derek looked at Victoria. He looked desperate. "Fix this!" His eyes screamed. Victoria looked at the cameras. She looked at the tourists watching with amusement. She looked at her watch. She made a calculation. Standing here arguing with a security guard made her look petty. It made her look like she thought she was above the law. "Just go through the machine, Derek," she snapped. "Stop making a scene. I will meet you inside." "But Victoria, go." She turned her back on him and walked through the VIP doors, vanishing into the cool shadows of the lobby. Derek was left alone on the sidewalk. The velvet rope was hooked back in place. He stood there for a second, his face flushing a deep, violent shade of purple. He looked at the photographers who were now clicking away furiously, capturing every second of his rejection. Defeated, he turned and walked toward the metal detectors. I watched with fascination as my brother, the venture capitalist, the man who claimed to own a penthouse, had to empty his pockets into a gray plastic bin. "Take off the belt, sir," the guard at the machine said loud enough for the press to hear. Derek fumbled with his buckle. He pulled the leather belt from the loops of his trousers, holding his pants up with one hand. He looked small. He looked cheap. "Shoes too, sir." Derek looked down at his Italian loafers. The pavement was cold and dirty, but the guard was waiting. Reluctantly, he toed off his shoes. He stood there in his socks on the concrete. One of his socks, I noticed with glee, had a small hole in the toe. The cameras flashed again, capturing the hole in the sock of the man who pretended to be a millionaire. "Step through." Derek walked through the frame. "Beep. Back up, sir. You still have metal on you." "It is my watch," Derek snarled. "It is a Rolex. I am not putting it in the bin. It will get scratched. In the bin, sir, or you do not come in." I watched as he unclasped the watch, which I knew was a high-quality replica and not a real Rolex, and dropped it into the plastic tray next to his keys and his phone. He stepped through again. This time silence. He scrambled to gather his things on the other side, hopping on one foot to put his shoe back on, trying to rethread his belt with shaking hands. He looked like a disheveled mess. The star power he had arrived with had evaporated completely, leaving behind a sweaty, anxious man in an ill-fitting suit. I turned off the audio feed. The show was just beginning. I walked back to my desk and sat down. I opened the thick folder that lay in the center of the mahogany surface. I checked the documents one last time. The bank statements, the lease agreements, the credit card receipts. Derek was inside the building now. He was rushing to catch up with Victoria, trying to salvage his dignity, trying to spin a story about incompetent security guards. He had no idea that the security guards were the kindest people he would meet today. I pressed the intercom. "Chloe." "Yes, Dr. Mitchell. Bring them up." "And Chloe, take the long way. Walk them past the donor wall. I want Derek to see that his name is not on it." "Yes, ma'am." I clasped my hands together and waited. My brother was coming to see the director, and the director was ready to see him. I watched the security feed on my ultra-wide monitor as the elevator doors slid open on the third floor. It was painful to watch, but I could not tear my eyes away. Derek stumbled out of the elevator, still trying to tuck his shirt into his waistband properly after the ordeal at the security checkpoint. His face was a blotchy mix of red and sweat. Beside him, Victoria Sterling glided out, looking cool and composed, though I could see the tightness in her jaw. She was walking a foot away from him, creating a deliberate physical distance that spoke volumes. Waiting for them in the atrium was Chloe, my executive assistant. Chloe was a shark in a silk blouse. I had hired her 3 years ago, not just for her organizational skills, but for her ability to read people and dismantle them with a smile. She stood with her hands clasped in front of her, holding a single, leather-bound VIP folder. Just one. I turned up the volume on the speakers. "Congresswoman Sterling." Chloe stepped forward, ignoring Derek completely. "On behalf of the National Museum and the Smithsonian Institution, welcome. It is an honor to have you with us today. Thank you." Victoria took the folder Chloe offered. She glanced at Derek, who was standing there waiting for his greeting. It never came. Chloe turned on her heel. "If you will follow me, Congresswoman, we have prepared a curated route through the segregation-era exhibit. The director thought this would be most relevant to your upcoming committee hearings on civil rights legislation." Chloe began to walk. She set a brisk pace. Victoria followed. Derek had to jog a little to catch up, looking like a lost puppy. "Hey!" Derek called out, his voice echoing too loudly in the hushed gallery. "Hey, excuse me, miss. Do I get a folder too?" Chloe stopped. She turned her head slowly, not moving her body, just her neck. Her expression was one of polite confusion, as if a piece of furniture had suddenly spoken to her. "My apologies, sir," Chloe said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. These briefing materials contain sensitive internal data regarding our acquisition budget and future exhibits. They are restricted to cleared government officials and high-level donors. I did not have clearance to print a copy for you. Derek bristled. I told you I'm a donor. I am a Diamond Circle member. Chloe smiled. It was a terrifying smile. Of course, sir. I am sure you are. Shall we continue, Congresswoman? They moved deeper into the exhibit. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my sparkling water. This was better than any movie. They entered the hall housing the segregated Southern Railway car, one of our most powerful artifacts. It loomed large and imposing, a physical testament to a divided history. Derek, sensing the silence stretching too long, decided it was time to prove his worth. He wanted to show Victoria that he belonged here, that he was an intellectual equal to the historians and curators. He stepped in front of the exhibit, blocking Victoria's view of the plaque. Wow, Derek said, nodding solemnly. This is powerful stuff, babe. Really powerful. This is the actual train from the Underground Railroad. You know Harriet Tubman used this to smuggle slaves to the north. That is why they call it the Underground Railroad, because they used these trains in tunnels. I choked on my water. On the screen I saw Victoria freeze. She looked at Derek with a mixture of horror and disbelief. She opened her mouth to correct him, but Chloe beat her to it. Chloe did not laugh. She did not scoff. She simply adjusted her glasses and spoke in a voice that carried perfectly in the quiet room. Actually, sir, Chloe said, this is a Jim Crow-era railcar from the 1920s. The Underground Railroad was not a literal railroad with trains and tracks. It was a network of safe houses and secret routes used in the mid-19th century. Harriet Tubman passed away in 1913, well before this railcar was manufactured. The silence that followed was deafening. A group of high school students on a tour nearby stopped and looked over. A few of them giggled. Derek turned a shade of crimson that clashed horribly with his suit. Oh, right, obviously, I knew that. Obviously. I was just speaking metaphorically. You know, the symbolism of the train, the journey to freedom. That is what I meant. Of course, sir, Chloe said, dismissing him entirely. Congresswoman, if you look to your left, you will see the drinking fountain marked colored. It was salvaged from a station in North Carolina. Victoria stepped around Derek as if he were a traffic cone. She did not look at him. She was focused intently on Chloe, asking intelligent questions about the preservation process. She was trying to salvage the visit, trying to pretend she was not engaged to a man who thought the Underground Railroad was a subway system. They continued walking. Derek trailed behind, checking his phone, probably hoping for a text from me saving him. But I was the one directing this play. Then came the moment I had specifically orchestrated. To get to the executive elevators, they had to pass through the main donor hall. One wall of this corridor was a massive floor-to-ceiling digital display. It scrolled through the names of everyone who had contributed to the museum. The names were categorized by tier: bronze, silver, gold, platinum, and the diamond circle. I watched Derek's eyes dart toward the wall. He knew he was in trouble. He had told Victoria specifically that his name was on that wall. He had bragged about it at dinner parties. Victoria slowed down. She was looking at the names. Let us see. Victoria murmured, her eyes scanning the gold tier. You said you made a donation last year, right, Derek? For the tax write-off. Yeah, Derek said, sweating profusely. It was a big one. It should be right there. Victoria scanned the M section. Miller, Mills, Minton, Mitchell. There was a Mitchell. But it was not Derek. It was Sarah Mitchell. That is your sister, Victoria pointed. But where are you? Derek laughed nervously. Oh, you know how these government bureaucracies are. They are so slow. I probably sent the check right after they updated the digital file. It takes months for them to refresh the system. Typical government inefficiency, right, babe? Chloe stopped walking. She turned to face them. She clasped her hands in front of her. Actually, sir, Chloe said softly, this is a live feed from our central accounting database. It updates in real time. If you donated $500 5 minutes ago, your name would be on the bottom of the bronze list by now. We take great pride in our transparency. Victoria stopped looking at the wall. She turned slowly to look at Derek. Her eyes were cold. The warmth, the affection, the partnership, it was all draining away, leaving behind the calculating gaze of a politician who realizes she is holding a liability. Derek shifted his weight from foot to foot. Well, maybe there was a glitch. Maybe it was anonymous. Sometimes I check the anonymous box by mistake. You know I do not like to brag about my wealth. Victoria took a step closer to him. She leaned in. She was close enough to kiss him, but her body language was lethal. I turned the volume up to maximum. I needed to hear this. Victoria lowered her voice to a hiss that was sharper than a knife. Derek, she whispered, you told me you were a gold sponsor. You told me you had the director on speed dial. You told me you owned this town. Victoria, listen. Why does the staff treat you like a nuisance, Derek? She cut him off. Why do you not know the difference between a train and a network of safe houses? And why is your name not on that wall? It is a mistake, Victoria, I swear. Sarah probably messed with the system. She is jealous. Stop it, Victoria snapped. Just stop talking. You are embarrassing me. You look like a fool, and you are making me look like a fool. She pulled back, smoothing her blazer. We are going to meet your sister now. Victoria said, her voice regaining its professional mask. And if this meeting does not go perfectly, if there is one more lie, Derek, just one more, we are going to have a very different conversation when we get to the car. She turned to Chloe. Take us to the director, please. We are done with the tour. Chloe nodded. Right this way, Congresswoman. The elevator is waiting. I watched them step into the elevator. The doors closed, sealing them in a small metal box together. I could only imagine the silence during the ride up. I stood up from my desk. I walked to the mirror and checked my reflection one last time. I adjusted the diamond brooch. I smoothed my lapel. I walked over to the long conference table and sat down at the head. I placed my hands on the leather folder containing the deeds, the leases, and the bank statements. The elevator chimed down the hall. Footsteps approached on the plush carpet. My brother was coming to impress the director. I smiled. Showtime. The air in the private waiting room of the executive suite was cold and smelled of fresh lilies. It was a stark contrast to the humid panic radiating off my brother. I watched them from the hidden camera feed on my tablet. Victoria Sterling was pacing back and forth on the plush Persian rug. Her heels sank into the expensive wool with every angry step. She checked her gold watch for the third time in 2 minutes. This is unacceptable, Victoria hissed. We have been waiting for 20 minutes, Derek. 20 minutes. Do you know how much my time is worth? My campaign manager has 3 interviews lined up for me at noon. I cannot be sitting in a hallway waiting for some museum administrator to finish her coffee. Derek was sitting on the edge of a velvet armchair, wringing his hands. He looked like a schoolboy waiting for the principal. He tried to smile, but it looked like a grimace. She is probably just wrapping up something important, babe. You know how these big institutions are, lots of red tape. I do not care about red tape, Victoria snapped. You said you had pull here. You said the director would be waiting for us with open arms. Instead, we get treated like tourists by security, and now we are being ignored. She turned to Chloe, who was standing by the door like a sentinel. Excuse me, Victoria said, her voice sharp. Can you go inside and tell Dr. Mitchell that Congresswoman Sterling is waiting? And tell her I am not accustomed to being kept waiting. Chloe did not flinch. She did not check her watch. She simply looked at Victoria with a calm, professional gaze that was infuriatingly polite. I am afraid that is not possible, Congresswoman, Chloe said softly. Dr. Mitchell is currently on a secure video call with the Vice President regarding the National Arts Endowment budget. I cannot interrupt a meeting with the White House. The silence that followed was delicious. Victoria stopped pacing. Her mouth opened slightly. The Vice President. Yes, ma'am. Chloe nodded. The Vice President values Dr. Mitchell's counsel on cultural affairs highly. They speak quite often. Victoria looked at Derek. Her eyes were wide. You did not tell me she was that connected, Derek. You said she ran a museum. You did not say she was advising the White House. Derek looked like he had been slapped. He blinked rapidly, trying to process this information. In his mind, Dr. Mitchell, the director, and Sarah, his sister, were still two completely different people. He could not reconcile the image of his sister, the woman he thought sold keychains, with a woman who took calls from the vice president. Yeah, Derek stammered. I mean, of course she is. She is a big deal. That is why I brought you here. I told you I had high-level connections. Victoria straightened her blazer. Her anger was suddenly replaced by a hungry ambition. If Dr. Mitchell was close to the vice president, then this endorsement was even more valuable than she thought. A photo with Dr. Mitchell was not just a cultural stamp of approval, it was a bridge to the executive branch. Okay, Victoria said, smoothing her hair. If she is with the vice president, then we will wait. We can wait a few more minutes. She sat down next to Derek. She actually took his hand. Good job, Derek. This is a higher-level meeting than I expected. Derek let out a breath he had been holding. He managed a weak smile. Yeah. I told you I would come through for you. But as Victoria pulled out her phone to check her emails, I saw Derek slide his hand into his pocket. He pulled out his phone. He angled the screen away from Victoria. My phone buzzed on my desk. I picked it up. A text from Derek. Where the hell are you, Sarah? We are in the waiting room. Victoria is getting pissed. She thinks the director is meeting with the VP, so I bought us some time. But you need to get here now. I took a sip of water and watched him type the next message. Find a way to sneak in. Bring a tray of water or coffee or something. Just act like you are serving us. I need to show her I can order the staff around. Do not make me look bad. And fix your hair. I laughed. A cold, mirthless sound that echoed in the empty boardroom. He still did not get it. He was so blinded by his own narrative that he could not see the truth staring him in the face. He thought I was hiding in a break room somewhere, terrified of losing my minimum wage job. He wanted me to come in and serve them like a maid so he could feel powerful. I decided to make him wait a little longer. I swiveled my chair around to look at the portrait of Frederick Douglass on the wall. I thought about the generations of my family who had served others. My grandmother who washed floors. My mother who bowed her head to men like Derek just to keep the peace. I typed a reply. I am on my way. I watched Derek read the text. He shoved the phone back into his pocket and relaxed. He sat back in the chair, spreading his legs slightly, regaining a fraction of his confidence. He thought help was coming. He thought his safety net was approaching. 10 minutes passed. Victoria began tapping her foot again. Is the meeting over yet? Chloe pressed her hand to her earpiece, as if listening to a command. She nodded solemnly. Yes, she said, addressing the room. The call has concluded. Dr. Mitchell has reviewed your file and is ready to receive you now. Victoria stood up immediately, smoothing her skirt. She looked nervous. For the first time all day, the Congresswoman looked intimidated. She was about to meet a woman who kept the vice president on the line. Derek stood up too. He looked around, expecting me to burst through a side door with a tray of lattes. He looked confused when the side door remained closed. Right this way. Chloe gestured to the massive double doors at the end of the hall. They were made of solid oak reclaimed from a historic church in Virginia. They were 12 feet tall and heavy. They were doors designed to make anyone who walked through them feel small. Chloe walked to the doors. She placed her hand on the brass handle. Derek leaned into Victoria. Let me do the talking, babe. I know how to handle her. We have a rapport. Victoria ignored him, fixing her eyes on the wood grain. Chloe pushed the doors open. They swung inward with a heavy, majestic sound, revealing the inner sanctum. The boardroom was vast, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the National Mall. The light poured in, creating a silhouette of the figure sitting at the head of the 30-foot-long mahogany table. The figure was not standing to greet them. The figure was seated in a high-backed leather chair turned slightly toward the view. "Please enter," Chloe said, stepping aside. Victoria walked in first, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Derek followed, scanning the corners of the room, looking for his sister, the servant. The figure in the chair turned slowly. The light caught the diamonds on the sunburst brooch. It illuminated the sharp cut of the ivory suit. It highlighted the calm, deadly expression on my face. Victoria stopped dead in her tracks. Her hand flew to her mouth. Derek bumped into her from behind. "What is wrong? Why did you stop?" Then he looked past her shoulder. He saw me. He blinked. He squinted. He looked around the room again as if expecting the real director to pop out from behind a curtain. Then he looked back at me. "Sarah," he whispered, "what are you doing in the director's chair? Get up before you get fired." I did not move. I did not smile. I simply rested my chin on my laced fingers and looked at them with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing insects. "Welcome to my museum," I said. My voice was low, but it carried to every corner of the room. And just like that, the trap slammed shut. The heavy oak doors clicked shut behind them, sealing the three of us inside the executive boardroom. The sound was final, like the closing of a vault. The room was expansive, designed to intimidate anyone who entered. The mahogany conference table stretched out for 30 feet, gleaming under the crystal chandelier. At the far end of the room, floor-to-ceiling windows framed the United States Capitol building, perfectly placing the seat of government as a mere backdrop to this office. I was standing by those windows with my back to the door. I wanted them to walk the length of the room. I wanted them to feel the scale of the space. I wanted the sound of their footsteps to echo in the silence before I said a word. I heard the sharp click of Victoria's heels on the marble floor. She was moving with purpose. She had composed herself after the elevator ride, adjusting her mask of political charm. She believed she was about to meet a stranger, a powerful ally who could save her failing campaign. "Dr. Mitchell." Victoria's voice rang out, projecting confidence. "Thank you so much for seeing us on such short notice. It is a privilege to be here. My fiancé and I have been admiring your work from afar for years." I did not turn around yet. I let the silence stretch for 3 seconds. 4 seconds. It was a power move I had learned from the vice president. Make them wait for your attention. Behind her, I heard the scuffling steps of Derek. He was probably looking around the room, assessing the value of the art on the walls, wondering if he could take a selfie without getting caught. "Yes, Dr. Mitchell." Derek chimed in, his voice a little too loud. As I was telling Victoria, I have always felt a deep connection to this institution. We represent the next generation of leadership, and we would love to discuss a partnership. I took a deep breath. I looked at the Capitol dome one last time. I touched the diamond brooch on my lapel. Then I turned, slowly, deliberately. I faced them. Victoria was halfway down the table, her hand extended for a handshake. When she saw my face, her feet stopped moving. Her hand froze in midair. Her smile, which had been bright and practiced, faltered and then vanished completely. She blinked. She tilted her head slightly to the side, as if her brain was trying to process an optical illusion. She looked at Chloe, who was standing silently by the door. Then she looked back at me. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. I stood tall, my hands clasped behind my back. I wore the ivory suit like armor. My expression was not angry. It was not smug. It was terrifyingly neutral. Derek, who had been walking behind Victoria, almost bumped into her. "Babe, why did you stop?" Derek asked, peering over her shoulder. "The director is right." His voice died in his throat. He saw me. His eyes bulged. He dropped the leather portfolio he was holding. It hit the floor with a loud slap. "Sarah," he whispered. I unclasped my hands and rested them on the back of the leather executive chair. "Hello, Congresswoman," I said, my voice smooth and cool, filling the cavernous room. And hello, little brother. The silence that followed was absolute. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. You could hear the rapid, shallow breathing of Victoria Sterling. Victoria lowered her hands slowly. Her face drained of color, leaving her makeup looking like a mask painted on a corpse. She whispered one word, Mitchell. She looked at Derek. Derek Mitchell. Sarah Mitchell. The realization hit her like a physical blow. The mysterious director who advised the White House. The woman she had been desperate to meet. The woman whose ring she was supposed to kiss. It was the same woman her fiancé had described as a loser, a failure, a gift shop employee. Derek. Victoria said, her voice trembling with a mix of shock and rising fury. Is this your sister? Derek was shaking his head rapidly. He looked like a cornered animal. He looked from me to the door, then back to me. His narcissism was fighting a war against reality, and his narcissism was winning. He could not accept that I was the person in charge. It did not fit his worldview. Sarah. Derek barked, forcing a laugh that sounded like a choke. What the hell are you doing? I raised an eyebrow. I am welcoming my guests, Derek. Isn't that what you asked for? He stomped forward, walking past Victoria. He marched right up to the head of the table. His face was red, his veins bulging in his neck. Get away from that chair, he hissed. Are you crazy? You are going to get fired. Did you sneak in here while the real director was in the bathroom? Did you pay the janitor to let you in? I watched him unravel. It was pathetic. Derek, stop, Victoria warned, but he ignored her. He pointed a finger at me. You are taking this prank too far, Sarah. We are here for a serious meeting. We are here to see Dr. Mitchell. Now get your cheap suit out of here and go fetch us some coffee before the real boss walks in and has you arrested. I looked at his finger. Then I looked at his eyes. I sat down. I settled into the high-backed leather chair. I adjusted the armrests. I leaned back, looking every inch the queen on her throne. I am Dr. Mitchell, I said calmly. No, you are not, Derek shouted. You work in the gift shop. You sell keychains. I uninvited you to my party because you are embarrassing. You are a nobody. Chloe. I spoke into the intercom on the table, not breaking eye contact with Derek. Yes, Dr. Mitchell. Chloe's voice filled the room from the speakers. Please bring in the security file for Mr. Derek Mitchell. And bring the invoice. Invoice. Derek stepped back, confused. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the mahogany table. Yes, Derek. The invoice. You offered me $200 to sneak you in the back door. You wanted me to violate federal security protocols for pocket change. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I tapped the screen and played the voicemail he had left me. If you can get us in tomorrow morning quietly, I will give you $200. Cash. The recording echoed in the boardroom. Derek's voice tiny and tinny and incriminating. Victoria flinched. She looked at Derek with pure disgust. So, I continued, turning off the recording. You got the tour. You got the VIP access. You are standing in the executive boardroom. I believe you owe me money, Derek. Where is my $200? Derek's mouth opened and closed like a fish. He looked at Victoria pleadingly. Babe, she is lying. She manipulated the recording. She is just the secretary. She must be sleeping with the boss or something. That is how she got the keys. Victoria closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. She was a politician. She knew when a ship was sinking. And she knew she was standing on the Titanic. She opened her eyes and looked at me. The arrogance was gone. In its place was fear. Dr. Mitchell. Victoria said, her voice steady but quiet. I had no idea. I know you didn't, Congresswoman, I said, because you never asked. You never vetted him. You never vetted me. You trusted the word of a man who is currently wearing a suit that I paid for. Lies. Derek screamed, slamming his hand on the table. It is all lies. I bought this suit. I own my apartment. I am a venture capitalist. I picked up the thick leather folder from the table. I dropped it with a heavy thud. Shall we look at the receipts, Derek? Or do you want to keep shouting at your landlord? Derek stared at the folder. He recognized it. He recognized the bank logo on the corner. The color drained from his face completely. Victoria looked at the folder, then she looked at Derek. Sit down, Derek, Victoria commanded. But Victoria… Sit down, she screamed. Derek collapsed into the nearest chair. I smiled, a cold, sharp smile that signaled the end of his world. Now, I said, opening the folder, let us discuss the future of your campaign, Congresswoman. And let us discuss why the Smithsonian will never endorse a family built on fraud. I sat there in the leather executive chair and watched my brother unravel. It was a fascinating study in human psychology. When faced with an undeniable truth, Derek did not accept it. Instead, he doubled down on the lie. He was shouting now, his hands waving frantically in the air, trying to weave a new reality out of thin air. She is crazy, Victoria, Derek yelled, spinning around to face his fiancée. You know how she is. I told you she has mental health issues. She probably snuck in here to clean the room and sat in the chair. Sarah, get up right now. Get up before I call the police. I did not flinch. I did not blink. I did not even look at him. I simply reached out a manicured hand and pressed the button on the intercom system. Chloe, I said softly. Yes, Dr. Mitchell? The voice came through instantly crisp and respectful. Please bring in the file. The black one. And send in a glass of water for the Congresswoman. She looks like she is about to faint. I released the button. Derek stopped shouting. He looked at the intercom, then at me, then at the heavy oak doors. Victoria was standing very still. She was not looking at Derek anymore. Her eyes were fixed on the crystal nameplate sitting on the edge of the desk. She had been too agitated to notice it before, but now she was staring at it. It read, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, Executive Director. It was etched in heavy glass. It was not a prop. It was not something I had printed out at home. Victoria reached out a trembling hand and touched the cold glass of the nameplate. She ran her finger over the letters. Derek, Victoria whispered. Her voice was barely audible, but it cut through the room like a razor. Derek rushed to her side, grabbing her arm. Don't look at that. She planted that there. It is a fake. Listen to me, babe. We need to leave. This place is weird. Sarah is having an episode. Let's just go to the car. Victoria ripped her arm away from his grip. She did it with such violence that Derek stumbled back. She looked at him, and for the first time I saw the politician vanish and the woman appear. She looked betrayed. She looked humiliated, but mostly she looked terrified. She planted a nameplate, Derek, Victoria asked, her voice rising. Did she plant the security guards who salute her? Did she plant the assistant who treats her like royalty? Did she plant the Vice President of the United States on a video call? It was a trick. Derek pleaded, sweat pouring down his face. It was a recording. Sarah is good with computers. She is trying to sabotage us. The double doors opened. Chloe walked in. She was carrying a black leather portfolio and a crystal glass of water on a silver tray. She walked past Derek as if he were a potted plant. She placed the water gently in front of Victoria. Then she walked to the head of the table and placed the portfolio in front of me. Is there anything else, Dr. Mitchell? Chloe asked. No, thank you, Chloe. You may wait outside. Chloe nodded and left, closing the doors softly. I opened the portfolio. Inside were the documents that proved who owned the building we were standing in. It also contained the ethics charter of the Smithsonian Institution. I looked up. I am Dr. Sarah Mitchell, I said. My voice was calm, authoritative, and final. I am the executive director of this museum. I control an annual budget of $40 million. I oversee a staff of 200 people, and I decide who this institution endorses. I turned my gaze to Victoria. Congresswoman Sterling, I continued. I heard through the grapevine that your campaign is struggling. I heard you came here today hoping for a partnership, hoping for a photo opportunity that would prove to your voters that you are connected to the community. Victoria nodded slowly. She was unable to speak. It is a shame, I said, closing the file with a soft thud. Because the Smithsonian has a very strict code of ethics. We value truth, we value integrity, and we have a zero-tolerance policy for fraud. I stood up. I walked slowly around the desk until I was standing just a few feet away from them. I cannot partner with liars, Congresswoman. And I certainly cannot partner with a woman who cannot even see that the man she is marrying is a con artist. The words hung in the air. Derek let out a nervous, high-pitched laugh. Okay, okay. Good joke, Sarah. You made your point. You got a promotion. Congrats. We are really proud of you. Now can we just take the picture? Victoria is busy. He reached out to grab Victoria's hand again. Come on, babe. Let's take a selfie with the director and get out of here. The sound of the slap echoed through the cavernous boardroom like a gunshot. It was fast, it was brutal, and it was loud. Victoria had swung her hand with all the force of her humiliation. Her palm connected with Derek's cheek, leaving an instant, angry red handprint. Derek stumbled back, clutching his face. His eyes were wide with shock. Victoria, shut up! Victoria screamed. The scream tore out of her throat, raw and primal. Just shut your mouth! She was shaking. Her entire body was vibrating with rage. You lied to me! She hissed, stepping toward him. You lied about your job. You lied about your money. You lied about your sister. You told me she was a loser, Derek. You told me she was an embarrassment. She pointed a shaking finger at me. That woman is one of the most powerful cultural figures in Washington, D.C., Victoria yelled. She is the person I needed to impress. And you made me treat her like a servant. You made me walk in here and humiliate myself in front of the very person who holds the keys to my election. Babe, please, Derek whined. Don't you call me babe. Victoria advanced on him, backing him toward the wall. Do you have any idea what you have done? Do you have any idea how stupid you have made me look? I am running for Congress, Derek. My entire platform is based on judgment, on character, and I am engaged to a man who doesn't even know his own sister is a CEO. She grabbed the lapels of his jacket, the jacket I had paid for. Who are you? She demanded, shaking him. Who are you really? Because clearly you are not a venture capitalist. You are just a leech, a liar. Derek tried to push her hands away. Victoria, calm down. You are overreacting. Sarah is just trying to mess with your head. We are a team, remember. We are not a team. Victoria spat the words out. You are a liability. She turned away from him, breathing heavily. She looked at me. Her eyes were filled with tears, but they were angry tears. She was not sad about losing him. She was furious about losing face. She smoothed her hair. She adjusted her blazer. She took a sip of the water Chloe had brought. Then she looked at me with a gaze that was pure steel. Dr. Mitchell, Victoria said, I would like to apologize. I was misled. I was manipulated. I leaned against the heavy mahogany table, crossing my arms. You were. I agreed. But you also chose to believe him. You chose to judge me based on his lies, without ever asking a single question. You chose to treat me like help, until you realized I was power. Victoria flinched. She knew I was right. However, I continued, I am not a cruel woman. I am a just woman. And I have some information in this folder that you need to see. Information about where your campaign funds have actually been going. Derek's eyes widened in terror. Sarah, no. Don't do this. I ignored him. Would you like to see the bank statements, Congresswoman? I asked. Would you like to see how much of your donor money was transferred into a private account under the name Derek Mitchell Consulting? Victoria looked at Derek. Then she looked at the folder. Show me, she said. Derek lunged for the table. No. You can't show her that. That is private. I simply stepped aside and let him crash into the table. I slid the folder toward Victoria. Read it, I said. Victoria opened the folder. As she turned the pages, the silence in the room grew heavier and heavier. It was the sound of a career ending. It was the sound of a relationship dying. And I stood there watching it all happen, feeling absolutely nothing but the cool satisfaction of justice served. The silence in the boardroom was broken only by the crisp sound of pages turning. It was a sound that seemed to slice through the air like a guillotine blade. Victoria Sterling was reading the financial dossier I had placed before her. Her eyes moved from left to right, scanning rows of numbers, dates, and transaction descriptions. With every page she turned, her posture collapsed a little more. The confident congresswoman who had walked in 10 minutes ago was evaporating, leaving behind a woman staring into the abyss of her own ruin. I watched her closely. I knew exactly what she was looking at. I had spent the last night compiling it with my forensic accountant. It was a roadmap of my brother's deception, and it was paved with my money. Derek was sitting with his head in his hands, rocking back and forth slightly. He was mumbling to himself, a low stream of panic that sounded like the prayers of a condemned man. Page 4. Congresswoman. I said, my voice cutting through the quiet. Please look at the entry for November 12th. Victoria stopped turning. Her finger traced the line. Tiffany and Company. She read out loud, her voice barely a whisper. $42,000. I looked at her left hand. The platinum engagement ring was catching the light from the chandelier. It was a stunning piece. A 3-carat oval diamond surrounded by a halo of smaller stones. I had admired it when Derek posted it on Instagram, captioning it, "Nothing but the best for my queen. Hard work pays off. It is a beautiful ring," I said, leaning back in my leather chair. Truly exquisite. Derek has excellent taste. The only problem is that he does not have excellent credit. I stood up and walked slowly to the window, looking out at the city. That charge appeared on my American Express Centurion card. I continued. Derek is an authorized user on that account, strictly for emergencies related to our mother's health care. I suppose he considered your engagement an emergency. Derek jumped up from his chair. I was going to pay you back, Sarah. I was waiting for a deal to close. I just wanted it to be special. I wanted Victoria to have the ring she deserved. Sit down, Derek, Victoria said without looking up from the page. Her voice was flat dead. She turned the page. Page 7. I directed. The trip to Cabo San Lucas, the private villa, the first-class flights. Victoria closed her eyes. I remember that trip. Derek told me he had just sold a tech startup. He said we were celebrating his exit. I turned from the window. He did not sell a tech startup. He sold a lie. That entire week, costing $18,000, was paid for by the Mitchell Family Trust, a trust that I established to pay for our future children's education. Derek emptied the account. Victoria looked up at me. Her eyes were swimming with tears, but beneath the sadness, I saw the dawn of horror. She was realizing that her entire romance, her entire life with this man, was a stolen fantasy. But that is not the worst part, is it, Dr. Mitchell? Victoria asked, holding up the folder. Her hand was shaking. No, I said, walking back to the table. That is just the petty theft. That is just the lifestyle. The real problem, Congresswoman, begins on page 12. I placed my hand on the folder and flipped it open to the back section. The pages were marked with red tabs. Derek tried to grab the folder again. Victoria, please do not look at that. That is business. That is complicated. You won't understand the accounting. Victoria shoved him away hard. Get off me! She looked at page 12. The color that had been returning to her face vanished instantly, leaving her looking gray and ill. DM Consulting, she read. Donation to Friends of Victoria Sterling. Maximum individual contribution, $3,300. She scanned down the list. DM Strategic Partners. Donation to the Sterling Super PAC. $50,000. She looked up at me, terror etched into every line of her face. I do not understand, Victoria whispered. Derek told me these were his business partners. He told me he was fundraising for me. He said he was bundling donations from his network of investors. I shook my head slowly. There is no network, Victoria. There are no investors. DM Consulting is a shell company. DM Strategic Partners is a bank account with a zero balance until 2 days before those donations were made. I leaned in close, my voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. 2 days before those donations were made, I transferred $55,000 into Derek's personal account to pay for repairs on our mother's house and to cover a tax bill he claimed he owed. He did not pay the taxes. He did not fix the roof. He funneled the money into shell companies and donated it to your campaign. The room went dead silent. Do you know what that is called, Congresswoman? I asked. Victoria put her hand over her mouth. She knew. Of course she knew. She was a legislator. She wrote the laws. It is a straw donor scheme. Victoria breathed through her fingers. Correct, I said, straightening up. It is a federal crime. It is money laundering. And it is a violation of campaign finance laws that carries a mandatory prison sentence. I looked at Derek, who was now weeping openly, tears streaming down his face onto his expensive suit. You are not just engaged to a liar, Victoria, I said mercilessly. You are the beneficiary of illegal campaign funds. You are laundering my stolen money to buy yourself a seat in Congress. I did not know. Victoria gasped, standing up so fast her chair tipped over backward with a loud crash. I swear to God, Dr. Mitchell, I did not know. He told me it was legitimate. He told me he verified the sources. Ignorance is not a defense in the eyes of the Federal Election Commission, I said coldly. And it certainly is not a defense in the court of public opinion. Imagine the headlines tomorrow. Congresswoman funded by embezzlement. Sterling campaign built on stolen family trust. No. Victoria grabbed her hair, pacing frantically in a small circle. No, no, no. This cannot be happening. This destroys everything. I will be disbarred. I will be forced to resign. I will go to jail. She stopped pacing and looked at Derek. You killed me, she whispered. You didn't just lie to me, Derek. You killed my career. You made me a criminal. Derek looked up, his eyes red and swollen. I was trying to help you. I wanted you to win. I wanted to be the husband of a congresswoman. I thought if I could just get you elected, we could pay it all back. We would be powerful. We would be untouchable. You idiot! Victoria screamed. Her composure shattered completely. She grabbed a heavy crystal glass from the table and hurled it at the wall. It shattered into 1,000 pieces, showering the expensive carpet with shards of glass. There is no paying it back. This is a felony, Derek. A felony. She turned to me. She looked small now. The power suit seemed too big for her. The pearls seemed like a noose. Dr. Mitchell. Victoria pleaded, her voice cracking. Sarah, please, you have to believe me. I am a victim here too. I had no idea he was stealing from you. I will return the money. I will liquidate my assets. I will return the ring. Just please do not go to the authorities. Do not release this file. I looked at her. I saw a woman who had come into my house to use me and was now begging me to save her. I picked up the folder. I tapped it thoughtfully against my chin. The Smithsonian cannot be associated with a financial scandal, I said calmly. We have a reputation to uphold. If I report this, it becomes public record. If I hand this to the FBI, your name will be mud by morning. Victoria was weeping now, hands clasped in prayer. Please, I will do anything. I walked back to my desk and sat down. I am not interested in destroying you, Victoria. You are just collateral damage in my brother's ego trip. But I cannot allow my money to fund your political ambitions, and I certainly cannot allow my brother to continue living a lie at my expense. I opened the drawer and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "This is a confession," I said, sliding it across the polished mahogany. "It states that Derek Mitchell acted alone without your knowledge. It states that you will immediately return all illegal donations and cooperate with any internal audit I choose to conduct." Victoria snatched the paper. She didn't even read it. She grabbed a pen from the table, and, I added before she could sign, "It states that you are terminating your relationship with Derek Mitchell effectively immediately. Because frankly, Congresswoman, if you stay with him after this, you are not a victim. You are an accomplice." Victoria looked at Derek. He was looking at her with pathetic hope. "Babe, don't sign it. We can fight this. We are a power couple, remember?" Victoria looked at the pen. Then she looked at the man who had bought her a ring with his sister's credit card. She didn't hesitate. She signed the paper with a vicious scratch of the pen. She dropped the pen. She looked at Derek with eyes that were as cold as the grave. "We are done, Derek," she said, and then she looked at me. "What do I do now?" I checked my watch. "Now," I said. "You get out of my office. You have an election to lose. And Derek, you stay. We have not even discussed the car yet." Victoria Sterling stared at the single sheet of paper lying on the mahogany table. The ink of her signature was still wet. It was a confession. It was a plea deal. But most importantly, it was a lifeline. She looked at the paper as if it were a raft in the middle of a stormy ocean, and she was the only survivor clinging to it. I stood by the window watching the gears turn in her head. I could practically hear the calculations being made. Victoria was a politician down to her bone marrow. She was trained to assess risk. She was trained to cut loose dead weight when the polls dropped. And right now, the man standing next to her was not just dead weight. He was a radioactive anchor dragging her down to the bottom of the Potomac. Derek was oblivious to the shift in the atmosphere. He was still trying to salvage the wreckage of his fantasy. He reached out and touched Victoria's arm. His fingers were shaking. "Babe, listen to me." Derek pleaded, his voice cracking with desperation. "It is just a piece of paper. It does not mean anything. Sarah is bluffing. She won't go to the press. She is family. She would never hurt the family name. We can fix this. I will sell the car. I will talk to my crypto guys. I will get the money back." Victoria did not look at him. She was looking at me. Her eyes were searching my face, looking for any sign of weakness. Any sign of the sister who used to bail him out. She found none. "Dr. Mitchell," Victoria said, her voice steadying, "if I walk out of here today, if I dissolve the engagement, if I return every cent of the donations, will you guarantee your silence?" I walked back to the desk. I picked up the heavy financial dossier. I held it up. "This file stays in my safe, Congresswoman, as long as you keep your end of the bargain. But let me be perfectly clear about what that bargain entails." I took a step closer to them. "It is not just about the money, Victoria. It is about the optics. It is about the narrative. If you stay with him, you are endorsing him. You are endorsing the man who embezzled $50,000 from a children's charity fund to buy you that limited edition Hermes Birkin bag sitting on the chair right there." Victoria flinched. She looked at the orange leather bag she had carried in so proudly. It was sitting on a velvet chair, looking suddenly obscene. "Yes," I continued mercilessly. "That bag cost $12,000. The money came from the museum's inner-city literacy grant. My brother took books out of the hands of children so you could carry your lipstick in style." Victoria's face twisted in disgust. She looked at the bag as if it were covered in blood. "And the private jet to Miami," I added. "That was funded by the maintenance budget for our HVAC system. If the air conditioning fails in the archives this summer and history rots, it will be because you needed a weekend getaway." "Stop," Victoria whispered. "Please stop. I will not stop." I said, my voice hard as diamonds. "Because you need to understand who you are sleeping with. You are sleeping with a parasite who feeds on the goodwill of others. And if you walk out of those doors with him holding his hand, you are telling the world that you are okay with stealing from children to feed your vanity." I paused, letting the silence stretch. So here is the ultimatum. You walk out of here alone and you survive. You keep your seat in Congress. You spin this as a tragic betrayal by a man you trusted. Or you walk out with him and I release this file to the Washington Post within the hour. I looked at my watch. You have 60 seconds to decide. Derek let out a strangled sound. Sarah, you can't do this. We are blood. Mom will never forgive you. I ignored him. I kept my eyes on Victoria. Victoria closed her eyes. She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of the expensive lilies and the underlying smell of disaster. When she opened them, the fear was gone. It was replaced by a cold reptilian clarity. She turned to Derek. She looked him up and down. She looked at the Italian suit that fit him a little too tightly. She looked at the sweat staining his collar. She looked at the hole in his sock. For the first time, she saw him not as the venture capitalist or the power broker, but as the fraud he was. She saw the desperation. She saw the weakness. Derek, she said quietly. Yes, babe. Derek stepped forward, hope flaring in his eyes. I am here. We can do this. We are a team. Give me your hand, she said. Derek smiled, a wide, relieved smile that showed all his teeth. He reached out his hand. See? I knew you would stand by me. Love conquers all right. Victoria looked at his hand. Then she looked at her own left hand. The hand that bore the 3-carat diamond ring. The ring bought with my credit card. The ring that was a felony wrapped in platinum. She reached for the ring. Derek's smile faltered. What are you doing? Victoria gripped the diamond. She twisted it. It was tight on her finger, but she didn't care. She pulled. She pulled hard, scraping the skin. Victoria, stop. Derek panicked. Why are you taking it off? It came free. She held the ring up to the light for a second. It sparkled beautifully. It was the symbol of everything she had wanted. Status, wealth, a power couple image. Now it was just evidence. She grabbed Derek's hand. She didn't hold it. She slapped the ring into his palm with enough force to sting. It is over, Derek, she said. Her voice was devoid of emotion. It was a business transaction being cancelled. Derek stared at the ring in his hand. No. No, Victoria. You are confused. She is manipulating you. Don't let her win. She isn't manipulating me, Victoria said, stepping back from him. She is saving me from you. She reached for her Hermes bag. She hesitated for a split second. Then she picked it up. She turned it over and dumped the contents onto the velvet chair. Her phone, her wallet, her keys, her lipstick. They clattered onto the fabric. Then she threw the empty $12,000 bag at Derek's feet. Keep it, she spat. It is yours. You bought it with stolen money. Maybe you can sell it to pay for your lawyer. Victoria, please. Derek fell to his knees. He actually fell to his knees in the middle of the boardroom. He grabbed the hem of her skirt. I love you. I did everything for you. I wanted to be the man you deserved. Victoria looked down at him. Her expression was one of pure revulsion. She kicked her leg, freeing her skirt from his grasp. You are not a man, Derek. You are a child playing dress-up in your sister's clothes. And I am done babysitting. She turned to me. She straightened her spine. She fixed her hair. In a matter of seconds, she reassembled the mask of the Congresswoman. Dr. Mitchell. She nodded formally. You will have the reimbursement check by morning, and you will never see me again. I nodded back. Acknowledged, Congresswoman. Victoria walked to the massive oak doors. She didn't look back. She didn't hesitate. She opened the door and stepped out into the hallway, walking briskly toward the elevator, toward the cameras, toward her future. The door clicked shut. The room was silent again. Derek was still on his knees, surrounded by the wreckage of his life. The ring was in his hand. The orange bag was on the floor. The confession was on the table. He stayed there for a long moment, staring at the wood grain of the door where his fiancée had just vanished. Then slowly, he turned his head to look at me. His face was a mask of shock and grief. Tears were dripping off his chin. You ruined my life, he whispered. You jealous, bitter witch. You ruined everything. I sat down in my chair. I picked up my pen. I didn't ruin your life, Derek, I said, opening the next folder on my desk. I just turned on the lights. And you are the one who couldn't handle the glare. I checked the time. Now stand up, I said. We are done with the emotional part of the meeting. Now we need to discuss the assets. And Derek, I suggest you stop crying. You are going to need your strength to walk home. Because I am taking the car keys too. The door to the executive suite closed with a heavy finality that signaled the end of my brother's delusions. Inside the boardroom, the silence was absolute. Derek was still kneeling on the expensive carpet surrounded by the debris of his fraud. The confession he had refused to sign lay on the table. The engagement ring sat in his palm, heavy and cold. The orange Hermes bag lay like a dead animal at his knees. He looked up at me. His eyes were red and swollen. His face was a map of total devastation. "Sarah," he whispered. "Please, call her back. Tell her it was a joke. Tell her you made it all up." I looked at him with the detached curiosity of a biologist studying a specimen under a microscope. "It is over, Derek," I said simply. I pressed the button on my desk phone. "Raymond, I need a security escort in the boardroom immediately. Please remove Mr. Mitchell from the premises, and Raymond use the freight elevator. He does not have clearance for the VIP exit anymore." Derek scrambled to his feet. "Freight elevator? You cannot do that. The press is downstairs. If they see me coming out the back—" "They are not at the back, Derek," I corrected him. "They are at the front. And that is exactly where Victoria is heading. If you run, you might catch her. But I suspect she is faster than you." Derek did not wait for Raymond. Panic overtook his dignity. He grabbed the orange bag. He shoved the ring into his pocket. He turned and sprinted out of the office. I stood up and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window that overlooked the museum entrance. I wanted to see the second act. Down on the street, the scene was chaotic. The press had smelled blood. They sensed the tension when Victoria had stormed out of the building alone. I watched from 5 stories up as the automatic doors of the main entrance slid open. Victoria Sterling stepped out. She was alone. She was wearing oversized sunglasses, now hiding her eyes. She walked with her head high, moving with the speed and precision of a woman fleeing a crime scene. The photographers erupted. Flashes popped like lightning in broad daylight. "Congresswoman, where is your fiancé? Congresswoman, are the rumors of an investigation true?" Victoria did not answer. She signaled to her driver. The black SUV pulled up to the curb, screeching slightly. The security detail opened the back door. Just as Victoria placed one foot inside the vehicle, the museum doors opened again. Derek burst onto the sidewalk. He was a mess. His tie was crooked. His jacket was unbuttoned, flailing in the wind. He was clutching the bright orange bag like a life preserver. "Victoria!" He screamed. His voice was raw, audible even over the traffic. "Victoria, wait!" The press turned as one. The lenses swung from the composed congresswoman to the frantic man running toward her. Victoria froze for a split second. She looked at Derek. Even from this distance, I could see the revulsion in her body language. She did not wait. She did not wave. She dove into the back seat of the SUV and slammed the door shut. Derek reached the car just as it began to move. He banged his hand on the tinted window. "Babe, open the door. It is me. Open the door." The SUV did not slow down. It accelerated sharply, merging aggressively into the DC traffic. Derek was left standing in the gutter, his hand still reaching out toward the retreating taillights. Click, click, click. The photographers were having a field day. They captured every angle of his humiliation, the desperation, the abandonment, the hole in his sock. I turned away from the window. The next 50 hours were a masterclass in modern media destruction. I went back to work, but I kept the news running on the mute monitor in the corner. By 2 in the afternoon, the first headlines appeared online. "Trouble in Paradise for Sterling Campaign." By 4 o'clock, the tone had shifted. The photos of Derek banging on the car window had gone viral. Twitter was dissecting his outfit. They noticed the ill-fitting suit. They noticed the terror in his eyes. Then came the leaks. I did not have to release the financial dossier. Washington is a small town, and secrets leak like water through a sieve. Someone in Victoria's camp, trying to get ahead of the story, whispered to a reporter at the Washington Post. By the next morning, the headline on the front page was devastating. Sterling fiancé linked to shell companies and campaign finance violations. I sat in my office drinking my morning coffee reading the article. It was brutal. It detailed the straw donor scheme. It mentioned the sudden liquidation of assets. It did not mention my name or the museum directly, which was exactly how I wanted it. I was the invisible hand. The article painted Victoria as a victim of a con artist, but it raised the fatal question. How could she be trusted to oversee the national budget if she could not even audit her own boyfriend? Her poll numbers went into free fall. At noon on the second day, Victoria called a press conference. I watched it live from my tablet. She stood at a podium draped in American flags. She wore a modest gray suit. No jewelry, no engagement ring. She looked solemn, contrite, and fierce. My fellow Americans. Victoria began, her voice steady. Yesterday I made the difficult decision to end my engagement to Derek Mitchell. She paused for effect. The camera zoomed in on her face. I discovered that Mr. Mitchell had engaged in financial practices that do not align with my values or the law. I was deceived. I trusted a man who presented himself as a successful entrepreneur, but who was in reality trading on falsehoods. She did not mention that she had spent the money. She did not mention the Birkin bag or the trips. She threw him under the bus with the efficiency of a seasoned executioner. I have reported these irregularities to the Federal Election Commission, and I am cooperating fully to rectify any unintended errors. I will not let the actions of one dishonest man distract me from my mission to serve the people of this district. She stepped back from the podium, refusing to take questions. It was a good performance. It might even save her career eventually. But for now, she was damaged goods. And Derek. Derek was radioactive. My phone had been ringing non-stop for 2 days. My mother left 30 voicemails. She went from screaming at me to sobbing to begging. Sarah, fix this. The reporters are on our lawn. They are calling Derek a fraud. He is locked in his room, he won't come out. Do something. I did not answer. I watched the news cycle churn. I watched them dissect Derek's life. They found out about his failed business ventures. They found out about his eviction from a previous apartment. They stripped away every layer of his golden child persona until there was nothing left but the truth. He was a 30-year-old man with no job, no home, and no future. I poured myself a glass of sparkling water. The 50 hours were up. The destruction was complete. The building was quiet. The staff had gone home. The tourists had left. I walked to the window one last time. The sun was setting over the Capitol, casting long shadows across the city. Somewhere out there, Victoria Sterling was shredding photos of her engagement party. Somewhere out there, my mother was realizing that her favorite son was a liability. And somewhere out there, Derek was realizing that the sister he mocked, the sister he uninvited, was the only person who had ever really paid his bills. I took a sip of water. It tasted crisp and clean. I picked up my phone. I finally dialed my mother's number. She picked up on the first ring. Sarah. Oh, thank God. Sarah, you have to help him. I cut her off. My voice was calm and final. Hello, Mother. I watched the press conference. It seems Victoria has made her choice. Now it is time for you to make yours. What do you mean? She wept. I mean, the lease on the penthouse expires in 24 hours. I am not renewing it, and the car is scheduled for repossession tomorrow morning. Sarah. No. Where will he go? That is up to you, Mother. You always said he was special. You always said he was destined for greatness. Let us see if he can manifest a roof over his head. I hung up the phone. I turned off the lights in my office. I walked out past the security desk. Raymond stood up and saluted me. Good night, Dr. Mitchell. Good night, Raymond. I walked out into the cool evening air. I walked past the spot where Derek had been humiliated. I didn't look down. I looked up at the stars. I was free. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I was worth. The sun rose over Washington, D.C. the morning after the press conference, casting a pale, cold light on the city. Inside my office, the atmosphere was serene. I had slept for 8 hours straight for the first time in years. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying dead weight, and I had finally dropped the load. I sat at my desk with a single cup of black coffee and my phone. I was not checking social media. I was not reading the op-eds about Victoria Sterling's tragic lapse in judgment. I was looking at a spreadsheet. It was the master list of the Mitchell family assets. Or rather, my assets that the Mitchell family consumed. I dialed the number of my personal attorney, James. He answered on the first ring. "Good morning, Dr. Mitchell," James said. His voice was professional, but I could hear the anticipation. He had been advising me to make this call for 5 years. "Good morning, James," I said, taking a sip of coffee. "I am ready to proceed. Execute the severance protocols." "All of them?" James asked. "Every single one," I said. I listened as James typed on his keyboard. The sound was rhythmic and satisfying like a drumbeat of liberation. "Let us verify the list," James said. "First item. The residential lease for the penthouse at the Navy Yard. Occupant Derek Mitchell. Leaseholder Dr. Sarah Mitchell. Terminate it," I said. "Contact the building management. Tell them I am exercising the early termination clause due to a breach of contract. Inform them that the occupant is unauthorized as of this morning." "Done," James said. "Next item. The 2023 Porsche Panamera. Leased in your name. Authorized driver Derek Mitchell. Repossess it," I said. "I have already sent the spare key location to the recovery team. They should be at the garage within the hour." James typed some more. Item 3. The American Express Platinum card issued to Louise Mitchell, and the secondary card issued to Derek Mitchell. Cancel them. Report them as compromised. Because they are. They have been compromised by greed. And finally, James paused. The monthly stipend for your mother's living expenses, $2,500. I hesitated for exactly 1 second. I thought about my mother. I thought about the woman who had raised me. But then I remembered the phone call where she told me to send Derek $500 for flowers while I was donating millions to charity. I remembered her standing by while he humiliated me for decades. "Cut it," I said. "Understood," James said softly. "It is done, Sarah. You are free. Thank you, James." I hung up the phone. I did not feel guilty. I felt light. Across town, a very different scene was unfolding. My mother had driven into the city to comfort her golden child. She had found Derek in a state of collapse at a hotel bar the night before and had brought him back to the penthouse. They had spent the morning blaming me, blaming Victoria, blaming the world for their misfortune. They believed the storm was over. They believed that even though Victoria was gone, they still had the apartment. They still had the car. They still had the safety net. They decided to go out for a late brunch to lift their spirits. They walked out of the luxury building, heads held high, ignoring the side glances from the doorman. They walked to the parking garage, expecting to see the sleek black Porsche waiting in its reserved spot. It was gone. I watched the security feed from the garage on my tablet. Derek stood staring at the empty concrete space. He clicked the key fob in his hand. Click, click. Nothing happened. "Where is my car?" Derek shouted. His voice echoed in the concrete cavern. "Mom, where is my car? Did you move it?" "I didn't touch it, honey," my mother said, looking around nervously. "Maybe the valet parked it somewhere else." Derek ran to the parking attendant booth. He banged on the glass. "Hey, my Porsche is gone. Someone stole my Porsche. Call the police." The attendant, a young man named Kevin, who had been verbally abused by Derek for 2 years, slid open the glass window. He did not look concerned. Mr. Mitchell, Kevin said calmly. The vehicle was not stolen. It was repossessed by the leasing agency about 20 minutes ago. The tow truck just left. Repossessed. Derek screamed. That is impossible. The payments are automatic. My sister pays them. Kevin shrugged. I just work here, sir. The order came from the leaseholder. Dr. Mitchell. She authorized the surrender of the vehicle. My mother gasped. Sarah did this. She actually did this. Derek turned red. He pulled out his phone. I am going to kill her. I am going to call her and scream until she fixes this. But before he could dial, he realized he had another problem. They were standing in a cold parking garage and they had no car. Let's go back upstairs, Derek said, shaking. We will call her from the apartment. I need a drink. They walked back to the elevators. They rode up to the lobby. They walked past the concierge desk toward the residential elevators. Derek pulled out his key fob to scan it at the security gate. He held it up to the sensor. Beep. A red light flashed. Access denied. Derek frowned. He tapped it again. Harder this time. Beep. Access denied. What is going on? Derek kicked the gate. Open up. It is me. The concierge. A woman named Maria stepped out from behind the desk. She was holding a large white envelope. Mr. Mitchell, Maria said. Please stop kicking the gate. My key isn't working, Derek snapped. Fix it. Your key has been deactivated, sir. Maria said, handing him the envelope. This is for you. It is a notice to vacate. Derek snatched the envelope. He tore it open. My mother looked over his shoulder, reading the legal text. Notice of lease termination. Unauthorized occupant. You have 24 hours to remove your personal effects. This is illegal, my mother shrieked. You cannot kick him out. He lives here. Actually, Mrs. Mitchell, Maria said, checking her computer screen, the lease is in the name of Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She has informed us that Mr. Mitchell was a guest, and that his guest privileges have been revoked. She has also instructed us to change the locks immediately. But my clothes are up there, Derek yelled. My watch collection, my life. You can retrieve your items, Maria said. But you must be escorted by security. You have 1 hour to pack essentials. The rest will be put in storage at your expense. Derek dropped the paper. He looked at my mother. Mom. He whimpered. Do something. Call her. My mother pulled out her phone. Her hands were shaking so badly she almost dropped it. She dialed my number. I was sitting in my office watching the feed. I saw the phone ring. I let it ring twice. Then I picked up. Hello, Mother. Sarah. My mother screamed. Her voice was so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. Sarah, have you lost your mind? They took the car. They locked us out of the apartment. Derek is on the street, Sarah. He is on the street. I know, I said calmly. I authorized it. How could you? She sobbed. He is your brother. He is flesh and blood. He is going through the worst breakup of his life. He needs support. He needs family. And you are stripping him naked. You are cruel. You are evil. I took a deep breath. I am not evil, Mother. I am accounting. What does that mean? She yelled. It means the books are closed, I said. For 10 years I have paid for his lifestyle. I paid for the apartment because you said he needed a safe space to launch his business. I paid for the car because you said he needed to look successful to be successful. I paid for your credit cards because I wanted you to be comfortable. And what did I get in return? I asked. Did I get love? Did I get respect? No. I got mocked. I got used. I got told I wasn't good enough to attend a party paid for with my own money. That was just a misunderstanding. Mom pleaded changing tactics. He didn't mean it. He was stressed. Sarah, please. Just turn the key back on. Give him a month. Just 1 month. Number 1, I said. Sarah, she wailed. If you do not fix this, I will never speak to you again. I leaned back in my chair. Is that a promise? I asked. There was a stunned silence on the other end. Because if that is a threat, Mother, it is a very weak one. You only speak to me when you need money, so if the money is gone, I suppose we have nothing left to talk about. Sarah, wait. Derek grabbed the phone. I could hear his heavy breathing. Sarah, listen. I am sorry, okay? I am sorry I uninvited you. I am sorry about the tour. Just give me the car back, please. I cannot take the bus. People will recognize me. I laughed. Derek, you are famous now. People will recognize you on the bus. People will recognize you on the subway. You wanted to be a celebrity. Well, congratulations. You are the face of consequences. I hung up the phone. I watched the screen. Derek stared at the phone in his hand. He looked at the concierge. He looked at the locked gate. Then he sank to the floor of the lobby. He put his head in his hands and began to weep. Not the fake tears he used to get his way, but real ugly tears of a man who realized the ride was finally over. My mother stood over him, patting his shoulder, looking around for someone to blame. But there was no one left. I turned off the tablet. I stood up and walked to the door of my office. Chloe was waiting there with a stack of files. Dr. Mitchell, she said. The board is ready for the quarterly review. I smiled. Let's go, Chloe. I have never been more ready in my life. The phone in my hand felt heavy, not because of its weight, but because of the history attached to the number flashing on the screen. It was my mother. For 34 years, that ringtone had triggered a Pavlovian response in me. It used to make me anxious. It used to make me desperate to please. It used to make me reach for my wallet before I even said hello. But today, as I sat in the silence of my executive suite, watching the security feed of my mother and brother, having a meltdown in the lobby of a building I owned, the ringtone sounded different. It sounded like the dying gasp of a parasite that had finally been detached from its host. I swiped green. I brought the phone to my ear. I did not say hello. I just listened. Sarah! My mother's voice was a weaponized shriek that distorted the speaker. You open this gate right now. Do you hear me? You tell this incompetent concierge to reactivate the key fob. Derek is sitting on the cold marble floor. He is sobbing, Sarah. He is having a panic attack. How can you be so heartless? I leaned back in my chair, swiveling slightly so I could see the Washington Monument piercing the sky. I am not being heartless, Mother. I said, my voice low and steady. I am being a landlord. And as a landlord, I have a strict policy against tenants who use my property to run illegal shell companies. Stop talking like a lawyer. She screamed. We are not tenants. We are family. I gave birth to you. I raised you. I wiped your nose and paid for your braces. And this is how you repay me, by throwing your brother out on the street like a dog. I closed my eyes for a second, letting the familiar guilt wash over me. She always used the braces. It was her favorite trump card. The $2,000 she spent on my teeth in 1998 was apparently a lifetime debt that could never be repaid. I repaid you, Mother, I said, opening my eyes. I repaid you when I bought the house you live in. I repaid you when I covered your medical bills. I repaid you when I funded Derek's failed record label, his failed crypto mining rig, and his failed lifestyle brand. The ledger is balanced. In fact, you are overdrawn. You are keeping score. She scoffed. That is your problem, Sarah. You have always been cold. You calculate everything. You think money buys love. No, I corrected her. You think money buys love. That is why you only call me when you need a transfer. That is why you ignored me for 2 weeks when I wouldn't buy Derek a new laptop, but called me 5 times a day when you wanted the down payment for the penthouse. That is a lie. She argued, but her voice wavered. We love you. Derek loves you. He has a different way of showing it. He is under a lot of pressure. He is a sensitive soul, Sarah. He is not like you. He wasn't built for the grind. He needs support. I looked at the screen. Derek was wiping his nose on the sleeve of his designer suit jacket. The jacket I paid for. He is 30 years old, Mother, I said. He is a grown man. And do you know why he wasn't built for the grind? Because you never let him grind. You carried him. And when you got tired of carrying him, you forced me to pick him up. I am done carrying him. Sarah, please. Her voice cracked, shifting from anger to begging. Just listen to me. He has nowhere to go. All his friends have blocked him because of the news. Victoria has thrown him out. If you don't let him back into the apartment, he will be homeless. Literally homeless. Do you want that on your conscience? Do you want your brother sleeping under a bridge? I looked at the papers on my desk. The list of local shelters and budget motels I had compiled. He won't be under a bridge, Mother. He has you. Me. She gasped. Sarah, I am retired. I live on a fixed income. I have a 2-bedroom cottage. There is no room for his things. There is no space for a man his size. Then make space, I said ruthlessly. Put him on the couch. Or better yet, maybe he can get a job. I hear the museum gift shop is hiring seasonal workers. Since he thinks that work is beneath him, maybe it will be a good character-building exercise. You are mocking us, she hissed. You are enjoying this. You are sitting up in your ivory tower looking down on us and laughing. I am not laughing, I said honestly. I am mourning. I am mourning the brother I could have had if you hadn't spoiled him rotten. And I am mourning the mother I could have had if you hadn't chosen a side. I never chose a side. She lied. You did, I said. You chose his side on New Year's Eve. You chose his side when you asked me to send him money for flowers. You chose his side when you watched him humiliate me for years and told me to be the bigger person. Well, Mother, I am finally being the bigger person. I am being big enough to let him fail. Sarah, she pleaded. We are family. You cannot do this. Family helps each other. I gripped the phone tighter. This was it. The final manipulation. The phrase that had kept me shackled to them for a decade. You are right, Mother. I said, my voice soft but final. You are absolutely right. Family helps each other. She let out a breath of relief. Oh, thank God. I knew you would come to your senses. Okay, just call the concierge and... I cut her off. Family helps each other grow, I said. And by enabling him, I have been hurting him. I have stunted his growth. I have made him into a cripple who cannot walk without my credit card as a crutch. So I am going to help him in the only way that matters. There was a silence on the line. A terrified, confused silence. I am helping Derek learn the biggest lesson of his life. I continued. I am helping him learn independence. I am helping him find his own bottom so he can build his own foundation. Sarah, no. She realized what was happening. I have emailed you a list of affordable extended stay motels in Maryland. I suggest you book one quickly before the rates go up for the weekend. Sarah, don't you dare. And Mother, I added, do not come to the museum. Do not come to my home. Security has been alerted. If Derek sets foot on Smithsonian property, he will be arrested for trespassing. And if you come to my house, I will file a restraining order. You wouldn't, she whispered. Try me, I said. Sarah, wait. Wait. I love you. I paused. It was the first time she had said those words without a request attached in years. But it was too late. The words felt hollow like a counterfeit coin. Good luck at the motel, Mother. I hope Derek learns to fold his own towels. I pulled the phone away from my ear. I could hear her screaming my name, tiny and tinny against the air. Sarah. Sarah, please. I pressed the red button. The line went dead. I looked at the security feed one last time. I saw my mother stare at her phone in disbelief. I saw her turn to Derek and shake her head. I saw Derek throw his head back and scream a silent scream of rage at the ceiling. Then I reached out and turned off the tablet. The screen went black. The silence in my office was profound. It wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. It was the sound of a heavy burden being set down after a long, long hike. I stood up and walked to the door. Chloe was waiting for me. She looked at my face and she knew. She didn't ask. She just handed me my schedule for the afternoon. "Dr. Mitchell," she said, "the board of directors is waiting in the main conference room." I straightened my jacket. I touched the diamond brooch on my lapel. "Let's go, Chloe," I said. "I have a museum to run." I walked down the hallway, my heels clicking on the marble, a steady rhythm of power and purpose. I didn't look back. I didn't check my phone. I just walked forward into a future that was finally entirely my own. The walk down the corridor to the main conference room felt different that afternoon. For years I had walked these halls with a heavy invisible weight on my shoulders. I had walked them wondering if my phone would ring with another crisis. I had walked them worrying if my credit card would be declined because my brother had decided to buy bottle service at a club. I had walked them feeling like an imposter in my own life, because the people who were supposed to know me best treated me like I was nothing. But today, my steps were light. The marble floor seemed to carry me forward effortlessly. I looked at the portraits of civil rights leaders on the walls. I looked at the faces of men and women who had fought for dignity. I realized that my personal battle was small compared to theirs, but it was a battle for dignity nonetheless. And I had won. Chloe opened the double doors for me. Inside, the 12 members of the board of directors were already seated. These were captains of industry. They were philanthropists. They were scholars. When I walked in, they did not look at me with pity. They did not look at me with judgment. They stood up. "Dr. Mitchell," the chairman said, smiling warmly, "we heard about the swift action you took regarding the potential conflict of interest with the Sterling campaign. We wanted to commend you. Protecting the integrity of this institution is paramount, and you put the museum before personal relationships. That is rare leadership." I nodded, taking my seat at the head of the table. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman," I said. "The reputation of this museum is not just my job. It is my legacy. I will not let anyone tarnish it." The meeting lasted for 2 hours. We discussed budgets. We discussed upcoming exhibits. We discussed the future. For the first time in a decade, my mind did not wander. I was not calculating how to pay for my mother's roof repairs while discussing $1 million acquisition. I was fully present. I was sharp. I was brilliant. When the meeting adjourned, the sun was beginning to set over Washington, D.C. The board members shook my hand one by one, offering words of respect. I watched them leave. I was the last one left in the room. I walked out to the private terrace that adjoined the conference room. The air was crisp and cool. Below me, the city was transitioning from the business of the day to the energy of the night. Traffic moved in ribbons of red and white light. To my left, the Washington Monument stood like a sentinel. To my right, the Capitol dome glowed against the darkening sky. Somewhere in that city, Victoria Sterling was drafting her resignation from the committee. Somewhere in that city, my brother was sitting in a motel room realizing that there was no room service. Somewhere in that city, my mother was staring at a silent phone. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my cell phone. It was quiet. For the first time in my adult life, there were no missed calls, there were no frantic texts, there were no demands. I walked to the edge of the railing and looked out at the horizon. I thought about the names they had called me. Boring, plain, the shadow. My mother used to say it all the time. "Sarah, you are just a shadow compared to Derek. He shines so bright." I gripped the cold metal railing. They were wrong. They thought I was the shadow because I was quiet. They thought I was the shadow because I stayed in the background writing the checks, fixing the mistakes, smoothing over the rough edges of their chaotic lives. They thought I was the darkness that lived behind their brilliance. But they forgot basic physics. A shadow cannot exist without light. I was never the shadow. I was the light source. I was the sun that allowed them to cast their long, impressive silhouettes. I was the energy that fueled their lifestyles. I was the warmth that kept them from freezing in the cold reality of their own incompetence. And today, I had done the most powerful thing a son can do. I had set. I had dipped below the horizon of their lives, and without me, they were not shining anymore. They were just stumbling around in the dark. I took a deep breath, inhaling the freedom. It tasted like cold air and victory. I turned away from the view. I walked back into the conference room. I picked up my portfolio. I walked out past the security desk. Raymond was there checking the monitors. "Good night, Dr. Mitchell," he said. "Good night, Raymond." I smiled. And Raymond, "Yes, ma'am. If anyone calls for me tomorrow, anyone at all from the Mitchell family, tell them the director is unavailable. Indefinitely." "Understood, Director." I walked out the automatic doors onto Constitution Avenue. The wind caught my coat. I buttoned it up. I didn't call a driver. I decided to walk. I wanted to feel the pavement under my feet. I wanted to walk home to a house that was quiet and clean and mine. I was not Sarah the sister. I was not Sarah the daughter. I was not Sarah the gift shop girl. I was Dr. Sarah Mitchell. And my life was just beginning. This story is a reminder to every single person listening. You are not defined by the people who share your DNA. You are defined by what you tolerate. If you are being used, if you are being minimized, if you are being treated like an ATM machine instead of a human being, it is time to close the account. It hurts to cut them off. It hurts to walk away. But the pain of freedom is so much better than the pain of suffocation. Have you ever had a family member who only called you when they needed something? Have you ever felt like you were funding a lifestyle that mocked you? How did you handle it? Did you stay silent to keep the peace? Or did you finally burn the bridge to save yourself? I want to hear your stories. I want to know how you found your freedom. Leave a comment below. Share your truth. Because your story might be the key that unlocks someone else's cage. Thank you for listening, and remember, you are the sun. You. Do not let anyone treat you like a shadow. The most profound lesson from Sarah's journey is that generosity without boundaries is self-destruction. We often confuse being a good family member with being a doormat. Sarah believed that by funding her family's lifestyle, she was buying their love, or at least their respect. But in reality, she was only purchasing their contempt. True power comes when you realize that no is a complete sentence. You cannot save people who are determined to drown, especially if they are using your back as a raft. Financial independence is your shield. Do not hand it to those who would use it as a weapon against you. If this story ignited a fire in you, if you are tired of shrinking yourself so others can feel big, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Share this video with the Sarah in your life who needs to know it is okay to walk away. Let's build a community of cycle breakers who know their worth. Your new life begins the moment you stop paying for the old one. I'll see you in the comments.